Happy Friday. Happy Friday. So, I want to talk to you today about navigating the room when you're the only, you know, the only woman, the only Black person, the only person of LGBTQ plus IA of the community, the only person of a certain religion, the only, the the only. I want to talk to you about that today because it's a question that I get asked often. How do you navigate the room successfully, effectively, when you are the only one? And as a woman, as a Black woman attorney, as a Black woman trial attorney, as a Black woman trial attorney who is usually lead counsel on cases, this is something that I experienced for over 2 decades in my professional experience as a lawyer. It's also, something I experienced as a mediator and as an arbitrator. And you would think in those two situations, right, as a mediator and an arbitrator, that it wouldn't be as much of an issue because in those roles, I'm really the authority in the room, right? But it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter when you're the only. So that's what I want to talk about today. And if you're joining me live, drop your comments. I should be able to see your comments. I'm on YouTube and LinkedIn, so I should be able to see your comments. Drop your comments in, drop your questions, anything that you want to know as I am chatting with you here today. And before we dive deep into this topic, you see rolling across the screen is my high stakes arena event that's coming up. So if you want to know how to elevate your communication skills, so if you are the only in the room, and after today's video, you're going to know how to navigate. I'm going to give you the game plan to navigate the room. But what do you say while you're in that room? How do you communicate effectively while you're in that room? How do you ask the right questions? How do you answer the questions that are being asked? How do you negotiate, right? Maybe some of the discussions that are happening in there. How do you present your talk? How do you present your portion of the meeting? Right? How do you present your ideas? How do you deliver that with power and influence? How do you get people to listen to you? How do you get people to believe in what you're saying and buy into the mission and the message? All of those things are things that we're going to be working on at the High Stakes Arena, which is a 3-day immersive interactive experience all about elevating your communication skills. So it's October 23rd through the 25th in Orlando, Florida. You just need to go to highstakesarena.live to register. If you are in charge of a team, if you have a team or you have a group of people who want to come to the event, then just reach out to me in the DMs or drop a comment and I'll chat with you about how to bring your group because we'll have group rates. But that's highstakesarena.live. I would love to have you join me as we talk about elevating your communication skills. But let's get into this topic for today. How do you navigate these rooms when you find yourself being the only? As I said in the description, this is a topic, a question that I get asked all the time. And it recently came up while I was speaking at the HR Florida conference. And, we often find ourselves in these rooms and we come into the room with the baggage of being, quote unquote, the only. And because we come into the room with that baggage, it is hard for us to actually effectively navigate from a place of power because we're thinking, oh, what are people thinking? Or, what are you thinking? Oftentimes what's happening is not even what other people are thinking about you being the only person in the room. It's what are you thinking about being the only person in the room? And as I said, for 3 decades, next year will be three decades that I've practiced law. I'm retired now, but when I was practicing law those 2 decades and being a trial lawyer, I often was the only one in the room. And I had to make sure that when I showed up in that room, that I didn't take that as being something that was negative. I didn't take that into the room as meaning that somehow I was less than the other people in the room. Now, other people in the room have at times tried to make me feel that way, right? Either by their words or their actions, but you have to make sure that you don't take that on. That's other people's problems, right? I always say what other people think about you is not your business, it's data. I'm going to say that again. What other people think about you is not your business, it's data. So if somebody is thinking something of you because you're the only one, right? The only in the room, then just gather that data and try to understand what it is that they're thinking and why are they thinking that. But don't take on the responsibility of having to validate yourself in that moment, in that space. Don't do that, right? That is not your job. Data is for you to analyze, for you to review it, for you to see if there's some change that you need to make or something that you need to do. But in the moment when you are the only in that room, I don't want you to take on the challenge in that moment of trying to validate it. And what I want to do today is give you the game plan for how you can walk into that room and truly feel powerful, truly feel confident, so that you don't, again, you're not taking on the baggage of other people and you're not bringing the baggage in of what people have associated with being the only. So this is going to be quick. We're going to get through it. It's Friday and we're going to have a good time. But I want to give you this information because I think it'll be very valuable to you and to help you to navigate the spaces. When we are talking about communication, communication is not just about verbal communication. We often think of communication as just a conversation, but being able to navigate this space when you're the only, that's also a form of communication, because communication can be verbal, it can be written, it can be nonverbal, and it's also visual. And so when you are thinking about who you are coming into this space, you have to think about how are you going to show up in the space, because we know that what they see about you is what's going to make their first impressions. And so if you're walking into the space with some type of negative aura around you because you're like, oh, I'm coming in here and I'm going to be the only, right? What are they thinking? What are you thinking? Then that already puts you on a defensive position. And we don't ever want to be on the defense. We want to be on the offense, right? When we're going into these spaces. So let's get into it. What do we need to know, right? So this game plan I call be in the know. So what do you need to know going into a space when you are the only? First, you need to know the game. What is the game? What is this about? What is this room about? Is this room a team meeting? Is this room a performance evaluation? Is this room a media or podcast, interview? Is this room a town hall? Is this room a conference? Is this room a stakeholder meeting? Is this a board meeting? Is this a retreat? What is the game that's being played in this room? Right? You have to understand the context of the room and the game that's being played, because as we go through the other elements, that's important as a foundational piece to be able to navigate this space effectively and powerfully. So you need to know the game. What are you stepping into? Right? What is this room? What is this space that you are stepping into? Step into a boardroom, a courtroom, right? What is the room that you're stepping into? So first things first, you need to know the game. Second, you need to know the players. Who all, you know how they always say, who all gonna be there? Right? Who all gonna be there? Who's gonna be in the room? Who are the players in the room? And you need to know as much about them as you can, and as much about who particular is going to be in there. Now, here's the thing. We might be in situations, for example, I just spoke at a conference, and I know that I'm coming into a room. I don't know specifically who's going to be in the room, but what do I know? The game is that this is an HR conference, right? So the game is that people are coming here to learn as HR professionals. They want things that are going to help elevate them in their careers, right? Teach them how to do specific things, shift their mindset around things. That's the game that's being played. Who are the players? The players are HR professionals. But it's not just HR professionals, because we also know that we have speakers there, we have vendors there. But if we're thinking about the players who are going to be impacted by the game, right? I don't know specifically, their names, and I don't specifically know their titles, but what I do know is generally who's going to be there. I know there's going to be people who run the gamut. So there are people in HR, maybe in staff level roles, in individual contributor roles. It might be people who are emerging leaders, or there are people who are just new leaders, new managers. And then there's executive leaders, and there's decision makers, and right, it runs the gamut. And so when I'm thinking about, okay, moving into this space, so as you're thinking about the room that you're going into, while you may not know people's specific names, or you may not know, their specific titles, you need to know who the players are. You need to know what you're walking into. What level of people, what type of people, right? What are the kinds of backgrounds, educational backgrounds, work backgrounds, whatever? Who's in the room that you're going to be entering into? So you have to know the players. So first, know the game. Second, know the players, right? Third, you have to know the rules of the game. What are the rules, right? What's going to be happening in this room? Is this a place where there's going to be back and forth conversation? Is this a place where somebody's just going to be speaking and you're just going to be listening? What are the rules? What are the rules of engagement in this space, right? In this room. So you have to understand how this game, right, is going to be played. And again, when we're talking about game, I'm talking about, what is the particular thing? Is this a conference? Is this a meeting? Is this a media? Is this an interview? What is this? What are the rules for engagement around this game? What are the rules when it comes to how you're going to win in this game, right? So we have to know the game, we have to know the players, and we have to know the rules. Okay? This is all on you, right? Before you come into this space, if you want to really be able to navigate it effectively, knowing that you're going to be the only, or if you show up in the space, because sometimes we don't know beforehand, if you show up in the space and you are the only, so quickly you gotta assess. But you should already know the game, right? Regardless of whether you know that you are going to be the only. Before you get there, you should know the game. You should know the other players, right? Who generally is going to be in the room. And you should know at that point the rules. So whether you go into it knowing that you're the only, or you happen to get into it and knowing, and then find out that you're the only, you should already have this, in your brain. This should already be worked out before you get into this space. Now, that's the external pieces that you need to know, right? The game, the players, the rules, right? Now we're going to talk about you, because often what happens in these spaces is that because we come into this and we think being the only is a negative characteristic as opposed to a positive characteristic, we show up in a manner that we discount ourselves before anybody else does, right? We disregard ourselves before anybody else does. So we don't come in with a power position in this space. We are coming in like, very trepidatious, right? About being in this space and just being the only and all eyes on me, right? Which ain't such a bad thing, right? But to have all eyes on you. But this is how we come in. So Now we know the game, we know the players, we know the rules. What do we need to know about you? What you need to know about you is you need to know your role. So, when we're talking about being in these rooms, what could your role be? Is your role to be the spokesperson. So you're going to be responsible for speaking. You're responsible for communicating in some way. Like you're responsible for some agenda item on the meeting, in the meeting. You're responsible for being the person who's going to be answering the questions on the panel or being, the one who's going to be doing the media interview, right? You're the one leading the team meeting. You're responsible, right? So if you're the spokesperson, then you're responsible. So you have to know, is that my role going into this room? Or are you just there as, not just, are you there as an advisor in an advisory capacity? So maybe somebody else is the spokesperson, maybe someone else is responsible, but you're there as an advisor to that person, right? To maybe whisper in their ear or pass notes to them, for example. For example, when we are trying cases, right? If I am lead counsel, I may have an associate with me or I may have a paralegal with me. Their role in that room is to be my advisor. So they might be looking at different things. They might be passing me notes. There may be things that I may have missed or didn't hear, or, like, oh, I want to make sure that you caught that, or, hey, that was really good. Maybe you should, right? So what is your role as the advisor to that person? Maybe that's your role in the room, right? Again, being the only, but that's your role. So either spokesperson or advisor. The other role could be that you're an active participant. So, for example, you're part of the team. You might not be the lead. You might not be responsible for, being the person who whispers in the ear or passes the notes, but you have some responsibility. You have to actively participate in some way in that room, right? So you're an active participant. And then the fourth role, and you may come up with others, but the fourth role is that you're an audience member, meaning that you're there to just take in the information. So you're there, you're not there to speak, you're not there to advise, you're not there to actively participate in any way, maybe by asking questions, but you're there to absorb the information, to consume the information. So when you're going into these spaces and you find yourself being the only, you need to know your role, right? So we've said, need to know the game, you need to know the players, you need to know the rules, you need to know your role, and next, you need to know your value. So people often think when they are the only, they're like, they're thinking, oh, you just chose me, or I'm only here to be their token, right? And if you go into that space thinking that you're the token, you have already just negated who you are. You've negated your own power. You've negated your own brilliance because you've put this thing on you that I'm the token and that they just want me here to be a token. So I want to share something with you that I wrote in my book. The book, one of my books, is Unapologetic AF, 34 Ways to Unleash Your Inner Badass. And in this book are what I call my Kellyisms. And one of the Kellyisms I wrote about is this whole idea of like knowing your value and knowing who you are when you find yourself being the only. So this book is available on Amazon, by the way. So it's actually Kellyism number 11. It's called Know Your Role, but it also has to do with knowing your value. So in this particular discussion about being in the know, knowing your role is those four things that I talked about. So spokesperson, advisor, active participant, or audience member. And then for this discussion, knowing your value is where I want you to think about, have you been saying to yourself, or have you been thinking that when you're the only in the room, that somehow you are the token? And I want to help you shift your mindset around that, because if you think that you're the token, again, you've already negated your power going into that room. So here's what I wrote about this. I said, have you ever been the only one or one of few and been asked to be the face or voice for a particular issue? Was your thought or response something like this? I'm not your token or spokesperson. You're not going to use me for your PR stunt. If so, keep reading. Is that what they think of you, or is that what you think of yourself? Do you think you're simply a token or spokesperson? Do you believe that makes you less than? Well, what if you reframed your thinking? If you're the only one or one of few, why don't you think you're an expert? Why wasn't your first thought that you were selected because you and your life experiences make you uniquely qualified to speak to these issues? I always say you are what you answer to, not what you're called or believe you're being called. So the next time you're the one, right, or the only, fix your crown, big up your chest. And I say that's the Jamaican in me, and claim your title. You are an expert. Show up and answer to that. So the next time that you find yourself in a room and you are the only, embrace that. Embrace the value of that, because you are the only person who has the life experiences, right? The expertise from your point of view, from your lived experience of being that only. And so, therefore, you have value to add. So, if you are the spokesperson, if you're the advisor, if you're the active participant, and even if you're an audience member who's consuming the information, your mere presence of being the only adds context to the room. So, it is always being the only is always a power position, always a power position, always a power position. I need you to get that in your head. I need you to embrace that. I need you to let go of this whole idea of being the token. I don't know who came up with that, but get rid of it. Get rid of it. You're not the token. You're actually the expert, because you are the only person in that room who could communicate from that type of lived experience. Okay. So we're almost there. So you need to know the game. You need to know the players. You need to know the rules. You need to know your role. You need to know your value. And now you need to know your mission. Why are you in this room? What's the mission for you? What are you trying to accomplish in this room? Right? Being the only. If you're the spokesperson, what's your mission? If you're the advisor, what's your mission? If you're an active participant, what's your mission? If you're an audience member, what is your mission? Why are you in there? You know, I say my life's motto is I belong everywhere I am, but I don't belong everywhere. And if you don't understand the mission for being in that room, regardless of the fact that you're the only, maybe you're not supposed to be in there. Right? So you have to know the mission to be able to navigate this room effectively and powerfully. You have to know why you're there in the first place. What's the mission? That's the easy one, right? Figure that out. Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing here? What do I want to accomplish when I'm in here? So we're going to get to that part. But what is my mission in being here? Okay? So that's an easy one. So it's know the game. And I'm going through them again just in case, you're coming in during the replay, that go back and listen. So you have to, this is about being in the know so that you can navigate the room when you're the only. You got to know the game. You have to know the players. You have to know the rules. You have to know your role. You have to know your value. You have to know your mission. And finally, you need to know the end game. How's this going to end? What is the objective? What do you want to get out of it? What do they want to get out of it? If they've asked you to come into this space to be the spokesperson, what is it that they want you to accomplish? And what do you want to accomplish? How do you want people to feel when you leave this room? What do you want people to think? What do you want people to do? What is the end game? right? You have to know these things, because if you don't know the entire layout before you go into this room, or as soon as you step in the room and realize that you are the only, if you don't start this assessment process, then you're going to be on your back foot and you're not going to feel powerful. You're going to slip into this old thinking of, I'm the token in this room. I'm the only person in this room who looks like me, right? And now you're thinking all eyes on you, everybody's looking at you, and you're thinking it's negative, instead of standing truly in the power of who you are, being the only one, and being therefore the expert in that space, right? So we got to know, right, what's the mission and what's the end game. What's going to happen? What do I want to happen? What do I want people to think? What do I want people to feel? What do I want people to do? Right? And of course, some of that depends on what your role is, but you should always have an end game when you're going into these spaces. So that's the game plan. That's how you navigate these rooms effectively and powerfully when you are the only. So I'm going to go through the steps again, and I call it being in the know, right? So you have to know the game, you have to know the players, you have to know the rules, you have to know your role, you have to know your value, you have to know your mission, and you have to know your end game. If you know all of those things, then you'll be able to navigate these rooms effectively and with power, even when you are the only. Okay. So I hope that was really helpful to you, and that it's going to shift your mindset and really help you to understand that you need to walk into that room with your head held high, your back straight, and let people know, I'm here. You're welcome. I heard a speaker say that once, and I thought it was so great. I can't remember her name, or else I'd give her credit for it. But she said she walked in and she started her talk, and she says, I'm here. You're welcome. And so we were both speaking at that event. And when it was time to do my session, I did that just for a joke and to really acknowledge her. But that's how you need to walk into these rooms. I'm here. You're welcome. So if you're thinking that's great, and I've walked into the room, now what do I do? Because I'm the spokesperson, I'm the advisor, I'm the active participant. What do I do? Now I have to communicate. I have to either communicate verbally or I have to communicate in writing. Don't worry, I got you. I always got you, right? I always have a solution. One of the things about me is that I'm a strategist. So there's always a solution. I don't come with a problem, right? If I don't have a solution. So the solution is for you to join me in Orlando, October 23rd through the 25th for the high stakes arena. Because it's one thing to show up in the room powerfully, right? In our visual sense, right? In our nonverbal sense. But what do we do if we have to communicate in writing, or we have to communicate verbally in that room? And that's some of what we'll be talking about and be working through at the high stakes arena, October 23rd through the 25th. This is a 3-day immersive experience. And let me talk to you about what the 3 days are. So day one starts with an evening reception. So it's not a full day on day one. It's a 2-hour reception that we're going to have. But it starts the entire event, because this is going to be about networking, and networking is high stakes communication. So everything that we're going to be doing is around high stakes communication, and every communication is high stakes. Every written, every verbal, every nonverbal, every visual communication is high stakes. So we're going to start with an event so that we can get to know each other. So you know who's going to be in the room with you, because we're going to be interacting with each other. So it's not just going to be listening to me speaking. We're going to actually listen and do. So it's important to me that we have this time to get to know each other. So that's day one. That'll be in the evening. So you can come in on that day, because that part of the event won't start until 5 p.m. Then day one will be a full day. Day two, sorry, will be a full day of training, right? So it's really an experience. I don't like to call it training, but it'll be interactive. So that day we're going to have, different topics and each topic is going to build on the other. And you're going to be, again, learning and then implementing. And you might be implementing on your own, or you might be implementing in groups. Day one, we're also going to be playing games. So it's the high stakes arena. So in an arena, we're going to play some games. And so we're going to leverage some childhood games to really illustrate how we communicate or miscommunicate. And so that's going to be a really fun time. So you can work together in teams. It's just going to be a whole thing. So come, be comfortable, be ready to go, have whatever you need to take notes. So that's day 2. Day 3 will be half a day for most participants, for most attendees. So it'll be a continuation of day 2. So it'll be the same, the same type of format as day 2. Day 3 in the afternoon for 8 people, we are going to have a mastermind session. So when you register, so when you go on highstakesarena.live to register, once you pay for your once you pay your registration, you'll see if spaces are still available, you'll have the opportunity to upgrade to mastermind. So you'll be masterminding with me for an additional 3 to 4 hours. We can talk about anything that you learned over those days, or if there's something that you're working on and you need me to support you, you have questions about it. Maybe you have a presentation that's coming up and you'd love me, to give you some feedback around that, whatever, it's open. You all have that time with me to do that. So that would be the last part of day 3. So if you're thinking of coming into the event, you can kind of plan how you would travel into the space. So October 23rd through the 25th are the actual dates. If you're going to be in VIP, know that days 2 and 3 will be full days. If you're just going to do the regular session, then know that day 3 is going to be half a day. So if you're looking at, options for travel, regardless, even if you don't come into the mastermind session, you'll have all of the content that everyone else is going to get. So everyone will get the core content, and then we'll have a mastermind session, which will just be more around hot seats, people asking me questions, and me supporting you in whatever area that you need. So I would love to see you there. Come to High Stakes Arena. It is going to be amazing. It's a small group, right? Because it's going to be so interactive. So spaces are limited. And it's also why the mastermind is limited, because I want to make sure that you get what you need in that space for that 3 to 4 hours. So if you also have a team, or you want to get together as a group and bring a group, then we do have group rates. So just reach out to me about that. You can DM me on LinkedIn. You can email me at kelly@kellycharlescollins.com. However you want to get to me. I think my phone number is even on my LinkedIn. I don't know, text me. But you can get to me. Just let me know that you need a group rate, and just let me know how many people. We would love to have you by yourself, love to have you with a friend, love to have you as a team. Send your team before the end of the year. We know that communication is the number one business skill. So being able to elevate your communication skills is going to be a game changer for you in both your professional and your personal life. So listen, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be working now, like putting everything together. I'm a visionary, y'all. So I'm always creating stuff, but I really want this to be fun. I want learning to be fun. I'm tired of learning being so boring and everybody's just like droning on. When we play, we retain information, right? When we play and we're interacting with each other people, we build connection. So this is what this is all about for me, and we retain, right? So go to highstakesarena.live, get your ticket. I cannot wait to see you all. If you have any questions about the event, please feel free to ask me. I'm here to support you. And let me know what you thought about being in the know and navigating these rooms when you are the only. Well, that's it for now. Go to highstakesarena.live. I will drop the link in the comments, and I will see you in October. And I'll see you around these parts. You know, I'm always posting every day. So I'll see you soon. Take care.